If you were around for the last ComicThon, you'll possibly remember my review of Superman 2, which, well, let's just say I didn't like it very much. Superman 2 was one of those movies that I liked as a kid, but watching it now, it doesn't hold up well. Part of the problem with that movie was the director wanting to make a serious film like the first one, but the studio wanting to make it more goofy and comic because they misinterpreted the idea of a comic book, and they think they're all about making you laugh. Well, with Richard Donner completely out of the picture, they finally got to make their Superman comedy movie with Superman 3. To cement it as a comedy, the extremely popular comedian Richard Pryor was cast in a prominent role. The same director who took over for the fired Richard Donner was used again, and the plot was made suitably ridiculous. The idea of superhero comedy movies was something they really thought was going to be a big deal, and after this they were planning on doing Green Lantern as a vehicle for Eddie Murphy. But as Superman 3 was even less successful than the second film, which in turn was less successful than the first, it never happened. Anyway, this had some effects on the cast. Margot Kidder, who had been playing Lois Lane, was very vocal about the studio's decisions, particularly their decision to fire Richard Donner from the second film and rework it, and they punished her by reducing her role in this film. So the main love interest is now Lana Lang, played by Annette O'Toole. Gene Hackman absolutely refused to work on the film, so his part was reworked into a new villain, Ross Webster, played by Robert Vaughn. Richard Pryor's character, Gus, works for Webster and comes up with a plan to steal a large amount of money from the company by siphoning fractions of pennies at a time, which works really well, and he winds up making a lot of money this way, but gives himself away by spending it on a new lavish car, which gets him caught. Webster, however, wants to kill Superman for a fairly silly reason. He has a plan to control all the world's oil supply, and he wants to take Superman out of the equation so he can't stop it. Boy, if you replace oil with real estate, you can see how the character was supposed to be Lex Luthor. Anyway, Webster has Gus try to synthesize kryptonite, but it contains an unknown element, so Gus puts tar as the unknown element after looking at a pack of cigarettes. Yes, this movie is stupid. The not-quite kryptonite winds up making Superman get drunk and do stupid things like fixing the Leaning Tower of Pisa and other random nonsense, and he eventually splits into two beings which fight. Eventually, Gus turns on Webster and helps Superman, who saves the day. The plot is mind-numbingly stupid, and Richard Pryor, for the only time ever, was not funny. And he's possibly the greatest comedian of all time. The movie has almost no redeeming value, except for one thing, the performance of Annette O'Toole, who makes a great Lana Lang. She had good chemistry with Christopher Reeves, and when they're together, the movie forgets that it's a comedy, though it goes more into the romance genre. It's at least adept at that, as it's completely inept at being a comedy. Also, I believe the budget must have been even lower, as the special effects took a sharp decline in this one. The plot is silly, it's an unfunny comedy, and then has extremely forgettable villains. Overall, pretty bad. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10.